Welcome, everyone, to the 10th episode of my new podcast, Pug, Fireball, and Company. My guest today is Rich Nye, a former Major League pitcher with the Chicago Cubs, St. Louis Cardinals, and Montreal Expos from 1966 to 1970. The Cubs drafted Rich in the 14th round of the 1966 Major League June Amateur Draft, the second such draft in Major League history. So right there, that's quite a feat right there. Good afternoon, Rich. Please share with us where you are from and where you went to school.
I am from the Bay Area of San Francisco, Bay Area of California. I went to school in that area at Los Lomas High School, and then enrolled in UC Berkeley in 1962 in the College of Engineering, basically.
When did you start playing baseball?
I started playing.
So he was a catcher, and you're the pit. Were you easy on him, or did you try to throw real hard fastballs to him? With the glove. Well, what other sports did you play in high school, if any? Wow. Why did you decide to attend the University of California? Do you recall what the tuition cost then? Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. What did your folks do for a living?
Shoe store.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's how it was. Did you have any other siblings? Yeah.
Sister
Hmm.
was
Wow. Hmm. Hmm. Boy, that's quite an accomplished family you got there. Wow. I've read that two of your fraternity brothers at Cal were Dave Dowling and Larry Colton, who both pitched in the major leagues.
absolutely.
Did you know them very well?
Well, I did. I knew Dave
Yeah.
Dowling and I knew Colton, and they were upperclassmen when I was pledging my fraternity. And interesting that you bring that up right now. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I'm flying to the Bay Area. It turns out that it is big game weekend for Cal, Cal Stanford football game, and every year a number of my upper class fraternity brothers put together a luncheon the day before, and I'm flying out to be at that luncheon, and I got a text from Larry Colton, and I will be seeing him, probably having dinner with him tomorrow night and lunch with him the following day. We will have a good conversation for sure.
Cool. And for our podcast listeners, get this. Rich graduated from Cal with a degree in civil engineering. I don't know of too many baseball players that got degrees in civil engineering. That's well, quite a...
That is true. It's just
Mm. Mm. Really? Hmm. Mm. Mm. Wow. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. What was the average minimum? What was the average salary in the major leagues at that time, or at least the minimum? Do you recall what the minimum was back then?
salary was $7,000.
Mm. Oh. Right. Right. Mm. Yeah. Um, ah, wow. Yeah. Did any other teams express interest in you besides the Cubs and Houston originally? Okay.
It's funny that this was, they didn't any of the teams when you first signed, unless you were a top draft choice, even number one draft choice in the nation. I'm trying to think back. Was one of my teammates. This was in 1966. One of my Berkeley teammates. His name was Bill Frost, and Bill was the number one draft choice for the San Francisco Giants. And if I'm correct, he got a $25,000 bonus to sign that contract. And just again, to add to that story, I'm going back to see Larry Colton. Turns out that Bill Frost is in a senior citizens home in San Leandro in the Bay Area, and I'm planning to spend a little time visiting him as well.
Yeah, good. Good.
So it's going to be good old times.
Yeah. What do you remember about you had a 17 strikeout game for Lodi against the Fresno Giants in the California League in 1966, if the records are accurate. So what do you remember about that game?
Well, here's what I remember. Starting the game at game time, it was 104 degrees in Fresno. It did cool off when the sun went down, okay? I pitched a complete game, 17 strikeouts, and the highlight for me, again, pitching against the Giant minor leaguers, the highlight was striking out Bobby Bonds 4 times. Okay?
Wow.
Now, and this was early in my play with Lodi, California, the Lodi Crushers, they were called. This was Class A California League, I believe. And later that same year it was like the next time we went home, the Giants came to town, and on that team was my good buddy Bill Frost. He was pitching for Fresno. He was an Class A ball, and now I'm pitching in Lodi, and Lodi, the fences were not real long, and it was lit by these light posts that weren't real tall. And, I'm going with that confidence that I'd had before all those strikeouts, and I'm pitching against Bobby Bonds. Bobby Bonds hit one of my fastballs over the light tower.
Jeez.
I mean, out of sight.
Yeah, you had quite a first season there. You were 8-4 with a 2.91 ERA in 102 innings. You struck out 133 and walked only 30, if my baseball reference records are accurate. Yeah, then you go up to the Cubs in September. So what was that like, getting your first taste of the major league? And you were still fairly young then.
Oh,
yeah.
I was 20, I think 22.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I joined the team in San Francisco, so we go to Candlestick Park in the summertime, and it's always cool there. But what was fun was I was able to get tickets, and of course my mom and my dad lived in the area, so I had them at the game, and I had some of my college buddies. I was able to borrow tickets from other players, and my college buddies came to the games. I didn't play, but it was just fun walking out on the field in uniform.
Yeah. Well, why did they want you to come to San Francisco if you didn't get in a game? Just to experience the major league.
Well, they're saving money. See, if I was in Lodi, that's only in San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah, that was. Many people would agree. Yeah, the best all around. Yeah. Now I may have this wrong, but describe your first start in the major leagues. I think it was the second game of a doubleheader against the Cardinals at Wrigley Field.
Yep.
The Cubs lost, but you still got in your first game. What was that like? And Bob Gibson, by the way, won his 20th game of the season in the first game.
Well, I was pitching against left-handed pitcher Al Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
And the first batter I faced, I believe, was Lou Brock. That's what I'm recalling. And I ended up, I remember highlights for me, a couple of highlights for me. One, I ended up pitching into the eighth inning. I had a shutout going into the eighth inning. I got a couple men on base. Mike Shannon came up. I threw him what I thought was a really good pitch on the outside part of the plate, and he lofted the ball up over the fence in left field for a three-run homer. So I think that was the end of I think they brought in a relief pitcher then. I don't remember what happened right after that. But sort of a highlight for me, at that time for St. Louis, Orlando Cepeda was playing first base. And my first time up against a left-handed pitcher, I hit a ground ball to short. And it was a high hopper, and I had pretty good wheels. So I'm running down to first base, and it was a rap like this, boom, boom, at first base with my foot hitting the bag just after the ball was caught, okay? And Orlando Cepeda looked over his shoulder like, that was a pitcher. What's he running like that for? That's crazy. Next time up, I got a base hit to center field. And now I'm standing on first base, and here's Cepeda standing next to me. I'm 6'4", and I'm standing on the base, so that makes me even taller. And he's standing there guarding the plate, and he was about 6 feet or 6'1". And I said something like, Mr. Cepeda, I said, I've been a really big fan of yours since you were playing at San Francisco. And he looked at me like, I don't speak English kind of thing, right? Well, in old timers games after that, we became very friendly and we talked. And he is a sweetheart.
What do you remember about your first complete game, a 4-1 win over Bo Belinsky and the Astros in Houston, April 30th, 1967?
Well, here's what I remember.
Yeah. Well, that was a pitcher's ballpark, wasn't it? This was the Astrodome, right? Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. No.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, to me that's the biggest change for the worse in baseball. But that's a whole other subject. So how did you mentioned Leo DeRocher? So how did you get along with Mr. DeRocher?
well, the relationship with DeRocher and young guys was interesting. He rarely talked to the young guys. I was just one of those hotshot college kids that came out and started to play professional ball. So we had Kenny Holtzman, we had me, we had Kenny Rudolph was a college kid. We had a few other that I can't, the names just, I'm losing them, but they're there that he hardly talked to. If you were going to pitch that day, the pitching coach would put a ball on your chair if he knew you were starting the game, right? And if there was anything to say about how you pitched, Leo didn't come up and say, "Hey, nice job, kid. You really had a good pitching outing yesterday." What he would do is he would tend to talk to the press, and you'd read about how you did the day before. You'd read about it in the newspaper. And that's how I learned what Leo thought about my pitching the day before. Yeah, so we didn't have conversations. He didn't talk to you about the game. He did have, there were times when he's in the clubhouse and he will talk to a pitcher anticipating the game, today's game from yesterday's game. He'd talk about the pitcher that pitched the day before and say, you had good success with so-and-so. How did you pitch him? He talked to the pitcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he never had those conversations with me. He'd have the conversations with the more experienced pitchers. We had Kurt Simmons on the team.
Yeah.
And as an example, Kurt had really good success a game against Pittsburgh. And Clemente went 0 for 4. He had 4 ground balls to the infield. So Leo's in his meeting the next day, and he said, hey, my goodness sakes, Kurt. He says, hey, Kurt. He says, how'd you pitch Clemente? He says, you got him out 4 times with nothing. He says, Skip, I threw him a fastball. Pardon me. I threw him a medium speed fastball right down the middle, like a changeup, right?
Yeah.
So I put that information in the back of my head. So there was a time when I was with Montreal and I was getting my first start after being called back up from their minor league scene. And my first start was going to be in Forbes Field against the Pirates.
Mm-hmm. And
during the game, it popped into my head. Well, Clemente's in the lineup. Okay, how did Kurt get him out? I'm looking to get that ground ball. I used to get a lot of ground balls. And he said, get a couple of strikes on him and you throw him a nothing pitch down the middle. He's looking for a fastball and you throw him a batting practice pitch. And he's out in front of it. He pops it up or hits a ground ball, right? So first 2 times up, somehow, I don't remember how I did, but I got 2 strikes on him, got the count, like a full count, or, he fouled off a couple of pitches, but I had 2 strikes on him. And I threw him that changeup absolutely right down the middle. And 2 times in a row, I struck him out. So now I'm still in the ball game, and he comes around for the 3rd at bat, right? And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to get 2 strikes on him? So I'm thinking, well, I got to pitch him. You can't really pitch him inside because he's standing so far off the plate. It's not even going to be close to a pitch that you'd swing at, right? So I throw him a couple of pitches on the outside. I wanted to try and get him out with that same changeup. I threw a pitch that was at least 6 inches and shoulder high inside, right?
Mm.
He hit that ball off the top of the right field wall at Forbes Field. He ended up with just a triple, but I to this day, don't know how he hit that pitch. But he was a fabulous player, and I know that people will say he was the best all around. But for me, Mays still, as a base runner and a player, I still saw Willie Mays do things that I didn't see anybody else do.
Mm. Well, DeRocher's been blamed for not using his bullpen enough, which of course included you, later on, Ted Abernathy, Hank Aguirre, among others. Do you think that's a valid criticism?
Well, here's what I would say, and you're looking at not using the bullpen, but it's more about using 25 players on the team to keep them all in shape, to keep them all focused. Because if I sit in the bullpen for 2 weeks, I might be strong, but I don't have that sharpness that I need to have facing batters.
Right.
So this would be my criticism. My criticism was, he'd get situations, he'd go out to the mound, and he'd call Joe, get up, Reagan. Get up, Reagan. Get up, Reagan. And he'd have 2 of us warming up in the bullpen, and he'd get Reagan out. So it was like he only went one way. He had this lock on, and he tended to manage primarily with his gut feeling. He wasn't like today's that's looking at all the statistics and all the, it's important and it's great to know. He just managed by his gut. If he had a gut feeling that so-and-so was going to be good against that batter that's coming up, he'd put him in there.
Well,
I just don't think he used all of his utility players. He didn't give them enough activity so that when they're into pinch hit or they're into play an infield position or outfield position, run the bases, they weren't sharp.
Well, that's probably what led to the demise in '69, other than the fact that Mets got hot. But the Cub regulars had played pretty much the whole season, about every inning, so by September they were shot.
Well, and statistically,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Who are your best friends on the Cubs, and do you still keep in contact with some of them today? Mm. 60, yeah. That's that's why he recommended that I talk to you then. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, all right. Mm. Hmm. Uh, wow. If we could go back a little bit, you had a great '67 wins over Dunn, Drysdale. I went over the Reds 6-3 on July 1st, and you'd even doubled, I guess, and scored the go-ahead run in that game. And the Cubs at that point had won 13 out of 18, and were only a half game behind the Cardinals. So, what was the mood of the team at that point?
Well, the fact here we are, very very close to Cardinals, but so close to being in first place and hadn't been in first place for 22 years.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like, you know what, when I played, everybody played, yeah, we want to get in the World Series, but you know what? We want a ring. That's sort of what we were thinking about playing for. And we started playing so well that the management was excited. The fans in Chicago went crazy. They were very excited, and they started filling up the stands. And of course, management, up above management, not on the field management. Management was all of a sudden really excited about the fact that here's a team that is starting to bring people in the gates, and that hasn't happened for so many years. I mean, when I first joined the team, and this was in September in '66, came up the end of the season, there were games where the official attendance was just over 400. And you'd go out there, you'd take batting practices, and you'd look up in the stands, and you'd see more vendors than you'd see, and so
Mm-hmm. Yeah, back then they sold game day tickets like over 20,000 game. You could get tickets right up to the ticket office and get tickets for that day's game easily. Yeah. Well, you were named the Chicago Rookie of the Year, and you're also named the Topps All-Star Rookie team after that 67 season. So what did that mean to you?
Well, of course, you take that into negotiations the next year, right?
Yeah, of course. Mm, 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 yeah. Mm. Who did you negotiate with? Did you negotiate with John Holland or Mr. Wrigley himself? Mm, mm, right. Did you ever meet Phil Wrigley, and what was he like? Mm, mm. Did you ever see him at the ballpark? Because I've read that he never came to the ballpark. Oh, he did. He. Oh, did he? Oh, oh. Mm, 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 Mm. Who was the easiest catcher to work with? And you worked with a few. Mm. 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 Really? Mm. Anytime. Mm. Who was the toughest hitter you faced and why? Yeah, second baseman. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Right. Mm. Yep. Mm. How did you pitch to Hank Aaron? Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Mm, makes sense. What was your reaction to being traded to the Cardinals in December of '69, and then you were purchased by the Expos in 1970, May of '70?
Well, it was interesting because after the '69 season, uh, no, I guess it was after the '69 season, I went back down and played winter ball in Venezuela, and so I'm in Venezuela playing winter ball, and I'm doing well, and we're challenging for the league lead, and I'm pitching well. And my father-in-law calls me and says, "Hey," he says, "did you know you've been traded?" And I said, and of course, the way they call you is, I don't know how it was, long distance, and then uh, there was no email, there was no cell phones.
Right.
And I said, "Oh, really? Well, that's interesting. Who'd I get traded to?" St. Louis. Well, I'm thinking, I can't imagine St. Louis wanting me because my overall record against St. Louis was not great. I think it was like 1-8, 1 win and 8 losses against St. Louis. So I'm not sure why they wanted me to pick me up. And so when I went to spring training, they sort of, "Oh, you've been in spring training, you've been pitching, so we'll just kind of keep you on the back burner." And then Red said, "Oh, we're going to use you in the bullpen." Well, I've been a starting pitcher all my career. Even the last part of the time with Leo, I was a spot starter, long relief. I wasn't a short relief guy. I was a long relief guy. And as it turned out with Shane Deans, he started me in the bullpen, and I wasn't as effective in the bullpen. Guys that are left-handed hitters in the major leagues, you say, "Oh, I'm going to bring in a lefty to face him." Well, he's starting every day. He's playing against left-handers, right-handers. Doesn't make any difference. You pitch a lefty against Billy Williams, he's going whoop-de-doo. Okay? Doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. Right. Oh, jeez. Mm. 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 So that this might lead, well, this probably will be answered. The next question I had was, why did you decide to retire from Major League Baseball at age 27? It must have been because of the injuries, huh?
Well, it was, and so as it turned out, kind of an interesting story. I go to spring training with Montreal in 19. I'm going to say, I think it was 71, and I ended up going to the minor leagues, and they sent me up to Winnipeg, and knowing that I had this shoulder that wasn't quite right. So I go to Winnipeg, and it's probably 32 degrees at game time, that kind of thing. You're playing in a football stadium, and this is June in Winnipeg. It's colder than the sun began. And I was not effective pitching. But the manager, Clyde McCullough, saw me taking batting practice when everybody had batting practice, and I was really hitting the ball well, right? Left-handed hitter. So he started putting me in as a pinch hitter. And I ended up getting 6 hits as a pinch hitter, six for 8 or something as a pinch hitter, a couple of game winners, a couple of home runs. And he comes to me after that effort, which was like a 2-week stint. I haven't pitched now. And he said, I want you to start in left field. And I said, Clyde, I know I can play left field, and I know I can probably hit at AAA. But I said, I'm not going to get back to the big leagues as an outfielder or as a hitter. So he said, well, okay, you don't want to start? And I said, no. I said, you can keep pinch hitting me, that's fine. And I said, if I don't pitch, I'm not going to get back to the big leagues. So I sat and pitched.
Mm. Roland Heeman, maybe. Mm. Mm. At the University of Illinois in Champaign or Chicago? Champaign, okay. Well, you've had several honors. You're a very noted veterinarian in avian circles. You were president, or maybe still are, of the Association of Avian Veterinarians. You had a practice with as many as 5 full-time vets by the time you and your second wife, Susan, sold the practice in 2004. And what have you done since then?
Well, we started that practice with all exotics because my wife had this idea that doing exotic animals and taking care of them was something that would fill a need in the veterinary profession. And since I was doing exotic birds anyway, I said, well, I could look at that. And we had one other partner that joined us, Dr. Scott McDonald. And so we went ahead with her idea. We formed this practice, and it turned out to be quite a success. I was president of the Avian Association of Veterinarians, and I was a board member for many years. And that was when it first started in 1980. I was the board member. I think 89 was my presidency, and just very involved in that. I networked all around the country, and in fact, as it turns out, around the world. with exotic veterinary medicine. And so once I sold the practice, one of my former employees had gone to work with some other, tried to work with some other hospitals, and it wasn't working for him. So he decided to build his own practice. So he did. He got the money, got the practice going, and then called me and said, "Hey, could you work part-time for me?" And I was finishing up my contract obligation with the original practice. And I said, "Yeah, I can," because he was closer to me. And, we seemed to work well together. So 18 years later, and that is, I hired on with him working part-time. And 18 years later, which was about 2 months ago, I said, I'm kind of done with seeing clients. And I'll help you with surgeries because I still have good hand-eye coordination. But I'm done doing client visits. And at 80, I think it's a reasonable thing to quit.
You're the only baseball player I know of who became a veterinarian and specialized in avian and birds.
You are correct.
Quite fascinating.
Well,
yeah. Can I find it on, do you have a website? Does the business have a website? Oh. Oh. Okay. Okay. I'll do that. Well, this has been great. I'm really glad we overcame the technical difficulties at first. Really fascinating. I really thank you for doing this, Rich. When I close, so just stay on a couple more minutes to make sure this has all been uploaded because we had a problem with that with Ken's attempt at a podcast. But speaking of baseball, I'll be participating in a book fair at the Plaza at 300 Walnut Street in downtown Des Moines on Saturday, December 14th. In Tandem Arts and Authors and Book Press Publishing are sponsoring the event from 11 to 6 p.m. You can find my book by going to https://pugfireballandcompany.com. And one more thing, while we're in the thick of the pro football season, let's not forget the Chicago Cubs and the Iowa Cubs. The Chicago Cubs open the 25 season March 18th at the Tokyo Dome in Japan, of all places.
Wow.
Against the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the Iowa Cubs open next season on Friday, March 28th at home against Omaha. And of course, with the way the weather is in the Midwest, it could have snow on the ground on March 28th. You never know.
That's for sure, because we're having a little snow over the next couple of days, we're going to get a couple inches of snow. Supposedly.
I've heard they've had snow out west. We haven't had it yet here yet, but
you'll get it.
But
It's coming in the next couple of days, I think.
I'm sure we will. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop.